guess I've been thinking for a while about this idea that some number of years ago, a time or two, I heard that when your life is kind of hectic and you have a lot, maybe of big things to worry about and do, that if you just like shrink your time frame down and focus on like little bits of time, that it makes it easier and you can get through it and you don't have to think as much about the big stuff. And I know that as an adult, as an older teen, I felt like my parents flew by the seat of their pants a lot, and I got really good. And I'm one of the oldest of many children, and it was like I was helping raise them sometimes. Anyway, I got really good at living in the future and being really prepared. But with all this stuff going on the last maybe 6 months, especially the last 2 months, I really shrunk everything down. And I feel like I've been living one day at a time because all I think about is one day. And so I've done that, and it was helpful. I mean, I've gotten through life. I've gotten 2 months later, things are set up. I don't think I'm forgetting anything big, you know. And over the years, even though I was much more at peace with being a lot more prepared and living, or being aware of the future and planning than I had sometimes grown up, still now I feel like I don't like living in the future. I need to learn to live in the present. Well, so now the last 2 months, I feel like I've been living in the present a lot, and it's just no fun. Anyway, but I just feel like
whoa. Wait a minute. Where else can fun live except in the present? I mean, tell me how.
I guess I
what's
don't
not
know.
fun about living in the present?
Right.
Help me understand
I don't know about. Well, yeah. So I think, you know, I get up and I go to work every day, and I
What do
know
you
a
do?
week in advance. I'm a music teacher, so I run my own business, and I talk to many people all day, every day, and I'm always, you know, attracting more students as that
Do
works
you
out.
like? Well, hold on a second. Slow down. Do you like teaching music?
Yeah, I mean, I've done it since high school. I've played musical instruments my entire life. I learned to read on my own early, so that my mom would teach me the piano. You know, and yeah, that's my life.
Okay, wait a minute. Hang
Okay.
on. So when you're sitting there at the keys with your students and you're spending that hour and you're going through it and you got the music, you got the mistakes, and you got the interaction and all that, do you like that?
That's fine. That's fun. Although I am kind of on the introverted side, so the fact that I have kind of a people-intensive job, like that I'm, you know, really focused on the person, the student, and the material and whatever. You know, after a day of teaching, I can be pretty tired and ready to go home and not do much else. But
Oh,
I was
that's
telling
of
Albie,
course. I mean, I'm
I
like
have
that too.
plenty of yeah. So I do have plenty of social things to do, and I learned several years ago that I was somebody who often would kind of overschedule myself or go ahead and say yes to things and people more
Okay,
than I really could fit in
hang
a
on,
day.
hang on a second. I'm trying to get back to what you called about was that you're living in the present too much, and that's not fun.
That's what it kind of feels like. I know, and
But
yet
why?
I
I
don't
don't
feel like
understand
I
that.
want
If
to
you,
go back to living out.
but wait a
Oh, I
minute,
don't
hold
know
on
if
a
I'm
second.
just
First of all,
tired.
what the heck does? How are you going to teach music and be there and living in the future? Are you sitting there in your lessons thinking about your tax returns in 2025? I mean, what does this mean?
No, but every day there's stuff like that, right? I feel like living with my parents as a kid, I just saw how they didn't. I felt like it would have been so much more helpful and made life so much more pleasant for me and everybody if they had done some meal planning and if they had certain things on the calendar so that they weren't just telling
Okay,
all the
but
kids
wait,
suddenly,
just
we're going to go do
stop
this.
for a
I
second.
wanted more notice.
Stop. Hang on a second. Are you telling me that your calendar doesn't have any future music lessons on it and you don't know what you're going to be doing 3 months from now?
No, I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 10 years.
Exactly.
That's what,
Exactly.
and I feel
Exactly.
like
So
that's
hang
a
on a
drag
second. So
too.
what you said was there's something That's a drag too. There's some kind of like over identification is the way I would think about it. Then when you start to think about I'm just living, I'm living in the present. Well, first of all, where the hell else can you live? There is no future. That's just an idea that you're experiencing in the present. See, people talk about living in the future. You're not living in the future. You're living
So
right now.
I guess I'm spending, yeah, and I guess, I mean, is there such a thing as spending too much time preparing so that you feel like you're actually prepared for the future, and it's not just gonna, the day is not just gonna arrive and you're gonna be totally unprepared? Because I grew up seeing that and I hated it so bad.
I
And
know. And
anyway,
again, I'm saying the same thing that you keep mentioning this. And it sounds like you're still over identified with the chaos and this vow, I will never live like that. That even when you
okay,
start to experience a day of not being hyper vigilant about the future, that you start having a panic, that you might, oh no, I'm going to go back into chaos. Oh no, oh no, oh no. And it's a memory state,
it's a what? Sorry.
a memory. It's not
Okay,
real. It's
so
there's nothing real about this because you do have a calendar. It's all planned out. You said for the next 10 years. So the fact that you're
well, I mean,
re-experiencing, I know that's a
okay,
metaphor, but the fact that
no,
you're
no, that's fine.
re-experiencing or fearful of the chaos says to me, well, you're probably remembering what that was like, and you're remembering the emotional state that drove you to this vow and this structure of I'll never be like that. In fact, I'll so much never be like that. Then I, even if I do experience a moment in the day, I'm going to judge that as bad because I'm going to be thinking about the future.
So what do I do about this?
Good, good question. By the way, how are we doing? Have you had any fun chatting here?
Oh yeah.
Well, you weren't thinking about the future.
Well,
You
no, and
weren't
that's
planning.
yeah. So
You
I
didn't have your calendar out. Oh God, what's gonna happen? We had a moment in the present. What are we gonna do? Then things aren't bad, right?
no,
No.
no, and I would be. See, I feel like I would be happy to live that way, like in the moment more. And I don't say I never do that, um, but
You're
yeah,
just
like you
judging
say,
it.
there's always this element of like
Yeah, it's called an anxiety.
I don't know. I guess I feel like I was made quite a lot too to be like, okay, it's somehow your fault if the preparation for things hasn't happened. That it's the people
Yeah,
who didn't prepare. It's not their fault. It's other people's fault. You know, and this kind of thing. And
right.
I feel like I
You
guess
feel
I just
hyper
I don't know.
responsible and over
Well,
responsible and kind of hyper vigilant about where things going bad because they do go bad. I mean, you do control the whole earth. And if any bad thing happens that somebody didn't plan for, then I know it was your fault.
okay,
So that's just a structure, right? So here's how
okay,
it sounds to me, because people develop ways of kind of explaining and making sense of and defending themselves against uncomfortable emotional states in families and relationships and contexts. And so if you're in this experience and it's chaotic and your parents aren't planning anything and we don't know where we're going and you felt like you said you kind of have to parent. You were the parent. You said you kind of helped raise all these kids. I don't know how many there were. You said there were a bunch, but you're always not in the experience. You're always worrying about not only the experience now, but what's going to happen. And so that becomes a habit, for lack of a better term. It's a mental habit,
yeah,
it's a structure. And so you've learned to be in the world every moment thinking about not that moment, but thinking about future moments and
Okay.
preparing for them. That's called
Yeah.
hypervigilance. It's a symptom of kind of it's a way of coping with anxiety. And
Okay.
so in terms of what you got to do about it, what I would suggest, I don't think you're quite through processing what it was like to live in that. I would suggest either with a good therapist or a friend or a group or whatever, I would suggest that you begin to kind of process and get it out of your head. That was then, this is now. But you got to talk about the then. See, the way we leave things in the past is not by running away from them. The way we leave things, quote, in the past is by whatever past we still have with us that's bothering us. We bring it to the light of today and process it and get it out, and then we can move on. And I think there's kind of like, you need to be cared about and understood and listened to about what some of that was like. Then the second thing you're going to have to do is I think you're going to have to learn to observe when you go into this habit pattern, I'm going to call it that, of starting to not be in the now and think about and ruminate about the future and then go, what? Not going to do that, and come back to the present and engage just like you've engaged with me. And this is going to be a discipline of living in the moment. When you want to detach and go into the future, it's like, oh, stop, going to come back and be with whomever you're with and be in that music lesson or be on this, call with me or be feeling the grass between your toes or whatever it is, coming back in the experience. And as you do that, what happens is that's sort of what happens when people practice, some mindfulness or living in the moment. This is are you a person of faith?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of my favorite passages is where Jesus spoke to this in Matthew 6. And he said, which of you by worrying about anything can make it any different? Said,
Ah, thank you. Yes.
yeah,
Reminder.
that's what he said. He said, don't worry about tomorrow. He said, tomorrow's going to have, enough stuff of its own. Worry about today because today's, kind of pretty much all we got. I'm paraphrasing. Go read it tonight in Matthew chapter 6. And here's what we know
Yeah.
about the most mentally stable, happiest people is they do live in the moment. It's called savoring. It's one of the things that comes up in the happiness and thriving research more than a bunch of other stuff is the ability to engage and live in what's going on right now. Now, sometimes the activity of a now, what am I going to do today from 12 till 5? I'm going to have a planning session today about tomorrow. That's still living in the now, but I'm planning, and you can devote some time to that. But another afternoon, we're going to be sailing or we're going to be going for a hike or whatever. We're going to be planning, and you're going to have to learn to do some kind of thinking about that. I'm going to send you,
Yeah.
or I'm going to give you, I'm going to put you on hold, and I want you to give Albie your information because I've got a 2-hour webinar on anxiety. And part of it is about learning to kind of catch these ruminating thoughts. The rest of you can find it on boundaries.me/anxiety. And I want you to take a look at that because it's going to have some stuff in there that really, really relates to some of these thinking patterns I think that you're experiencing. But I want you to learn to catch
Okay.
this in the moment, and go back to whatever you're doing and engage in it. Okay.
Yeah. Can I just ask you to give me one, since you're the expert and you're somebody who, you know what I mean, you know something about this. give me your testimony. Give me your, for sure, that, I mean, because I've had experiences myself. I know that God comes through. I know that if you, like you say, well, like Jesus said, live today. Don't worry. Don't get all focused on tomorrow. Or, I know that God takes care of things, but it's hard to remember
Right.
that. And I've definitely had times in my life where I had more people around, like in my household. And right now it's just me. And I did feel
Oh,
like living in a big family, there are kind of, to a point, there are more people to think about more things, and you don't have to take care of absolutely every facet of your life yourself, right? But if you're on your own, I feel like there's more of that maybe you spend more time thinking about it, because you're like, if I don't do something, then I'm the one who's gonna end up in some trouble sometime because I failed to think about something. Anyway,
well,
so I wonder,
not only
what?
that, it's actually worse than that. In the mental part
Okay,
is when we are alone. I'm not talking about having some good introverted time alone, but I'm talking about when you're starting to feel isolated and deprived of, you know, some good contact with people, then that actually ups the anxiety state, and that actually causes a
yeah,
lot of this rumination to increase. So one of the things you might
okay,
want to do is schedule and be proactive about, I'm going to join a couple of groups. I'm going to go do this, or
well, that's,
I'm going to
yeah,
schedule three dinners a week out with some friends, whatever it is, for some experience in the moment times. And I think that would help. Was that the question? You and I got to go to some other calls, but you
yeah.
said you wanted something
No,
from me.
I know.
What was it?
Right, yeah.
What
So
was
I was just going to say, tell me that that's true. Tell me that that works. Tell me that you have experience with, as Jesus says, just not worrying about stuff, and it'll come together when it needs to.
Absolutely 100? That's the easiest question I have ever been asked. Is God
Okay.
faithful? Yes, 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 yes. I would not be sitting here doing what I'm doing if he had not come through 80,465 times.
Yes, thank you. All
And you
right.
know what? And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. You get on your knees, and anybody else get on your knees, and you reach up and you say, God, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I want you to hold my tomorrow. And I give myself to you, and I trust you even when I can't see it. And I want you to lead me and guide me, and I will follow you, and make yourself real to me and begin to speak to me. And I'm going to trust you in my future. If you do that, then what's going to happen is he's going to show up, and he's going to start to teach you this, that he is faithful, over and over and over. And the other thing I would tell you is, um, Catherine, in part, what you're experiencing is kind of human, because if you read the scriptures, this is kind of one of the main things that God is trying to teach humanity from the very beginning of the story. That he goes, are you kidding me, people? Don't you remember when you were slaves in Egypt and I brought you out, and now you're worried again? Don't you remember when I did this? And don't you remember when I did that? And don't you remember when I did this? And don't you remember when I did that? And so part of what you're experiencing is a human thing, but it's also part of what he calls us to trust him, because he has come through before, and he will again. Sometimes seems like to me he doesn't own a watch. I wish he'd come sooner, but yeah, I can tell you that. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Okay. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
All right.